La primera va a ser dada por David Barrero González, que actualmente está estudiando el doctorado aquí en el Instituto de Astronomía, INSEU, y nos va a hablar de un tema de investigación de tesis, que es Parallax for Non-Thermal Synchrotron Emission. Adelante.
Okay, I'm gonna switch to English. Thank you very much, Daniel. A little correction. This is not precisely my thesis topic, but it's related to my thesis project. Okay, this is a very interesting project in which I have been working with Alejandro maybe the last 2 or maybe 3 months. Okay. Okay. Eh, Polarized radiation is interesting to study because, unlike the case in which we only study the total intensity, when we study polarized radiation, I mean the Stokes parameters, we obtain a very important and interesting information related to the magnetic field in the case of studying the linear polarization. And when studying also the circular polarization, we can also obtain information about the gas composition. Okay. Near abajo, the dominant emission mechanism is known as synchrotron emission, which is present when relativistic electrons move super fast around an intense magnetic field. And a very important quantity when we study this synchrotron radiation is this angle I show here, this alpha known as the pitch angle, which is the angle for between the velocity vector of the charged particle and the magnetic field. An important characteristic of this kind of radiation is that is a polarized radiation and is a highly anisotropic. And as I mentioned before, studying a polarized radiation is very important because it reveals insights for example, the magnetic field topology. As we can see in the right panel, the polarization vector and the magnetic field are related in the sense that together with the weight vector, they form an orthonormal base, at least locally. So if we have information about the weight vector and the polarization vector, so we have information, indirect information about the magnetic field. Here I show a nice video I found about this concept I was mentioning before. Depending of the geometry of this magnetic field, we will have different patterns on this polarized light because, as I mentioned before, together with the wave vector, they form an orthonormal base. Here we can see when we have a toroidal magnetic field, so the the polarization vector will tend to form a radial pattern. On the other hand, if, for example, this magnetic field has a toroidal and a vertical component, so the polarization pattern will be much more interesting, as we can see here. These lines we can see here are known as the electric vector position angles, which are indeed the direction in which points the electric vector, which is coaligned with the polarization vector.
¿Tienes apagado tu micrófono de la computadora?
Posiblemente.
Es que se está recibiendo muy bueno. No está grabando de inicio.
No, no necesita mutear. Ah, ya, ya. Ok. Okay. 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 This pattern I show in the last video is actually consistent with the observations. For example, here I show the EVPA pattern for M87. Here we can see these lines for the EVPA, the electric vector position angles, which are related to the Stokes parameters Q and U, which are known as the linear polarization parameters. Okay. For my project, I worked with simulations of a for a wait, okay, sorry. I work with GRRT polarized simulations, specifically with the code Raptor. In this kind of codes, we have to solve the radiative transfer equations. Specifically, here we have to solve four couple of different equations for each of the Stokes parameters. And similarly to the case in which we solve only for the intensity, we need to consider emission and absorption mechanisms. But in the case in which we solve for the four Stokes parameters, there are also two new effects known as Faraday rotation and conversion, which are very fun to study. For the case of Faraday rotation, when we have a magnetic field which is interacting with an electromagnetic wave, if this magnetic field is perpendicular to the vector wave, we can consider electromagnetic wave with this with an x and y components, each one with certain amplitude. When a magnetic field which is perpendicular to the magnetic wave interacts with this one of both of these amplitudes can be modified. And if we modify any of these amplitudes, we will modify the polarization state. This will be reflected in the sense that the polarization ray will be rotated. On the other hand, if this sorry, no, sorry. In this case, the magnetic field is parallel to the wave vector. And on the other hand, if the magnetic field is perpendicular to the wave vector, one of both of the phases of this electromagnetic wave can be affected, and if these two phases are different, so we will have a component of a circular polarization. Okay. This party is very funny. The last week we have a good discussion about this because for the student the mission of these regions, we need to define different reference frames. First, we begin from the plasma frame in which are also indeed designed in the way that we point the magnetic field to some theta direction. And related to this, we need to define a second reference frame, which is known as the emission frame, in reference to the wave vector. These two reference frames will be related by this angle theta, and we have to do this kind of transformation using a rotation matrix. This is because as I showed here, Sherbakov many years ago proposed a prescription for dealing with this system of equations, in which we define a new frame in which we define all the U components as zero. They are not physically zero. There are only zero in this specific reference frame. So this system of equations takes this form as I show in the bottom left side of the screen. When in which this rotation matrix is the one I show on the right side of the screen. Okay. In all of these emission, absorption, and Faraday coefficients, intrinsically we have the information of the plasma, and maybe the most important information we need comes from the electron distribution functions, which describe how the electrons are distributed in terms of their energy, described by the Lorentz factor. We have different electron distribution functions. For example, if these electrons follow a thermal distribution, we use which is known as a Maxwell-Joyner distribution. For very energetic electrons, we use a power law kind EDF. And a very interesting EDF in which I'm focusing for this project is known as kappa distribution, in which pay attention to this formula I show here, the W. This W will be very important in a couple of slides. This kappa distribution is very interesting and very important because it's capable of connecting the thermal and power law distribution as I show here. Depending of the value of this coefficient kappa. Okay. This is more related with what I am doing. These calculations are not mine. As I mentioned before, for this project, I'm focusing on these Faraday coefficients, which are related to this rotation and conversion mechanism in magnetized plasmas. For some reason which no one explains, for computing these coefficients which we need for solving the radiative transfer equations, for some reason everyone uses only this discrete formula for this kappa distribution. No one explains why, no one explains how they obtain this formula, but in all of the JRT codes with polarization I know, all of them use this set of formulas, which is not enough because we're losing a lot of information about the electron's energy. For this purpose, here I am now obtaining a set of these fitting formulas, as I show here, but for a continuous case. Here I show the fitting formulas I obtained for this coefficient, in which we took these four discrete formula and took them to a continuous case in this interval. Here I show a comparison of the data I used for obtaining this fitting formula. I used a genetic algorithm, and for the training, I use the data I show in red which is compared with the fitting formula, and here we can see that the error is very small. Here I show you the video of an example of this kind of a hierarchy simulation, comparing the different cases for kappa distribution with constant kappa equals to 3.5 to 5, and with the variable kappa. Here we can see that as we increase this coefficient kappa, the emission tends to be attenuated. Yes, something very important about this discrete formula is that I found that in this code, you remember this formula I showed before for this quantity W. I found that in Raptor, this formula with W, which considers the magnetization of the plasma, doesn't work when considering constant kappa. When considering constant kappa, if we try to use the full form of this W quantity, we obtain fluxes like 10 to the 20, 10 to the 100 Janskis, which is not physical, it's only numerical noise. And this full form for W only works when we implemented this variable kappa. Okay. These fitting formulas I showed before, they are already implemented in Raptor. They work very nice. Right now, I'm working in something a bit different because, as I showed before, this fitting formula only work in a very small interval for kappa. And we're still missing a lot of information about about the distribution. So we need we need a more complete prescription for this fitting formulas. For this, we are following the Shcherbakov work. Shcherbakov developed a method for computing these coefficients using the definition of the response tensor as I show here, using a thermal distribution. For this calculation, we are in a couple of transformations, as I mentioned before, because with this formulation, we obtain the coefficients in the plasma frame, but we need these coefficients in the emission frame. We obtain this through this transformation using the same rotation metrics I showed before. Here I show the calculations I did trying to replicate the Shcherbakov method. And here I show a convergence test for only one of these of these terms, because as I mentioned before, we're calculating this repulsed tensor, which has 9 components, from which at the end we only need four of them. And here I show the integration of one of these terms. Here we can see that theoretically we have to integrate these terms from 0 to infinity, but we can see that with a relatively small value for this type, for about 50. We can see this integral converge very smoothly. But this is not a universal case because this upper limit will change depending of the specific values we put into these formulas. This is the frequency, the temperature. So we are working on it. Something which can be a good and a bad news at the same time is that when I was doing these derivations, I didn't obtain the same formula as Sherbakov did, but at the end, it didn't matter because here I show the difference of of the same integral comparing the expressions I obtained with the expressions which Sherbakov showed in his work. And here, pay pay attention this here, please. We can see the integral is about 200, 100. And here we can see the difference is about 10 to the minus 13, 10 to the minus 14. I mean, this in practice, this is zero. So even though the analytical expressions I obtain trying to replicate the Sherbakov method, even though these expressions are apparently different, when we compare them numerically, they are perfectly consistent. By the way, yes, this is still for the thermal case, and we need it for the kappa distribution, which is very similar, but the distribution function is a bit more complex. We need to deal with very funny functions, for example, with the hypergeometric function, which has to be integrated in the same interval I mentioned. I'm still working in this part. Yes, I have had a lot of fun doing these calculations. They are not trivial at all, but yes, they are very fun. And just to finish, here we presented the two different approaches for computing the Faraday rotation and conversion coefficients. In the video I showed before, we could see that using a constant kappa, we cannot capture entirely the dynamics of on the jet. And even though this first approach for this using these semi-analytical formulas, in principle they are working nicely in Raptor, but in the same time we are limited to a very small interval for kappa. So we're still missing a lot of information about this distribution. And that's all. Thank you.
We have time for some questions.
Thanks for the nice presentation. So